I have another special Fly Fishing Founders episode for your listening pleasure today. I have John Billing on the show this week to tell the story of how he created the largest non-commercial fly fishing Facebook group on the planet. This is the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thanks for stopping by the Fly Fishing Show. In today's episode, I talked to John Billing to dig into the Facebook group that he created and has become the largest in the world. We hear about the resources in the fly fishing community and how it all got started, plus where John is heading next with the group. So without further ado, here's John Billing. How's it going, John?
I'm great, Dave. How are you doing? 5 a.m. here in Australia, so a good start.
That's right. That's right. Is this the normal time to you? Do you get up at 5 a.m. a lot?
No, I'm not known to be an early riser, but I had to make an exception in this case to talk to you, but it's all worth it.
There you go. Yeah, it's noon our time, so it's definitely a little bit of a gap there. I've had a few. Let's see. I think I've had a couple. Peter Morse was the last fly fishing guru I had on from your area, so we'll probably dig into a little bit of that. But I want to touch on the Facebook group. Go ahead.
I actually know Peter Morse very well. He and I have been involved in fly fishing casting instruction together. So, because he's an FFI master casting instructor, and I'm a casting instructor myself. So, he and I have spent a bit of time together in running clinics and things like that down in Australia. So,
awesome. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I knew. I didn't even realize you were from Australia. I knew that the Facebook group obviously is a worldwide, people all over the place. But yeah, I didn't realize you were down there. But obviously, you guys have a ton of fly fishing resources and rivers and waters, and so we'll probably jump into a little bit of that. I did want to touch on, definitely the Facebook group, and then talk about what you have going there. But maybe you can just start us off telling us where how you first got into fly fishing.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like most fly fishers, I think it was my father who got me into it as a young child. I grew up in Tasmania, down in the southern part of Australia, where there's a lot of wilderness areas, and fishing and outdoor activities is quite a popular sport, a pastime for people. So a lot of my time as a young child was spent following my father around as he was fly fishing in lakes and pristine areas in Tasmania. And so I got the bug at a very young age, and initially my job was dog duty because we had a pet dog, and I used to have to spend time looking after him so he didn't go running off into the wilderness somewhere. And then as I got a bit older and started getting a bit more mature and stronger, and I started fly fishing myself, I got my first rod and reel set when I was about 11, I think, which was a Shakespeare fiberglass two-piece six-weight rod with a matching Shakespeare graphite reel. And then caught my first trout when I was about 12, I think, on that rig. My dad and his father had walked away off over to the mountain somewhere and left me alone, looked after the dog with my own rod and reel. And I saw a fish puddling around in the shallows and promptly managed to get a little red machuca fly out to the fish, and managed to take it. And then I just panicked and tuna hauled the thing back into the shore and sat there very happy with myself, waiting until my dad came back, and from there I was hooked. So yeah, started at a very young age. I moved from Tasmania to mainland Victoria in my early 20s, chasing work and careers and things like that. Didn't do a lot of fly fishing in that period of my life because there were other things that took precedence, but then picked it up again in my early 30s, and since then have been actively chasing fish in saltwater and freshwater all around Australia, in New Zealand, some other places as well. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's the awesome thing to see. I mean, this group that you've created is grown into, I think it's over 60,000 people now. It's one of the biggest Facebook groups for fly fishing. How did you start that group, and where did that idea come from?
Well, originally, like I said, when I was getting back into fly fishing, I think it was 2010 we started the group, and at that stage there was a lot of fly fishing related content that was popping up in Facebook as Facebook was starting to become more popular in a global sense. And a lot of the information that was coming up was very useful. And if, a group of friends of mine, we said, well, look, it'd be a good idea if we could sort of centralise all the access to this information somewhere so that not only ourselves, but we could share it with other people. And make it a resource that we could call on whenever we needed to. So I started the group, I think it was September 2010. So we're coming up on nearly 10 years since it's been running. And as I said, in that stage, it's grown to nearly 60,500 members as of today. So the support's been amazing, and they're active members too. So, I mean, I'm looking at the stats this morning. I think of the 60-odd thousand members that we've had, nearly 44,000 of them are actually active members within the last month. So it's amazing that they're not just people who join and sit there passively. They actually contribute and post and chat and all that sort of thing as well. So it's a fantastic fantastic thing. I'm quite proud of it too. So
that's cool. Did you have any idea when you got started it was going to become one of the largest groups in the world?
Not at all. It certainly wasn't the intent. Given the amount of work that's involved in obviously administrating and looking after the group too, it certainly wasn't something we planned on at that point in time. We have a number of moderators and admin people who help me do the maintenance work on the site and keep people under control and review all the new members, because as you appreciate in the Facebook world, there's a lot of spam accounts and fake accounts and things like that people are trying to get access to your site for various reasons. So the administration load on it takes a little bit of time. So I'm very grateful to the other members and moderators and that who help keep everything running smoothly. So
there you go. And how did you? So the admin and the moderator, how many of those people do you have helping you out?
I think there's about 8 of us registered now, and they're all over the world. So we deliberately tried to make sure that we had global coverage, because as you appreciate, as the group grew and now primarily a lot of the membership comes from the States. I think there's about 35,000 members roughly from the US.
Oh, wow.
So it's well over half the membership is in the northern hemisphere. And so coming from Australia, being administrator, the time zone didn't do us much favour. So we had a couple of people who are willing to stand up and help us from the US. And so that's been a godsend, because it means that we've got basically 24-hour coverage around the clock, around the globe. So hopefully we can deal with issues quickly when they crop up and keep everything running smoothly. So
that's right. How do you find those people? How did those people become admins?
Basically through the association, through the group. Like there's various posts and chats and things that we would be in, and we pick up on people who had a vested interest in what we're doing and are really keen to try and contribute and help out. So we'd offer to them if they're willing to come on board and moderate some of the content and things like that. So, and again, some of them are the friends who I started the group out with in the first place as well. They've carried through the journey as well. Mm-hmm. So it's been a joint exercise from a lot of different people, but they're much appreciated too.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it seems like it's almost there's so much information there. It's almost overwhelming. You get on there. I just typed in, fly tying, and the cool thing is there are some ways to sort on there and stuff. What would be your if somebody hadn't been? Maybe you could start off first. Somebody who hasn't been to the group. I'll put a link in the show notes to where they can find it. But what can you describe it to that person? What the group's like? What sort of content covering? Do you know what's going on all the time? What content's out there?
Pretty much. I mean, we don't actively monitor every single feed that comes up, because looking at the stats again this morning, there was about 10,000 posts or something it averages a week. So that's a lot of content for people to try and keep on top of if they're administrating it. Now, there's some tools in Facebook that allow you to keep on top of keywords and things like that, so that any content that comes up that's outside of the group's rules gets flagged automatically. So there's some things in there that help us in terms of Facebook tools, but other thing is actively the members themselves can report content that they don't think is appropriate or is breaking the rules as well, and most of the stuff that we deal with as moderators and admins comes through those channels. In terms of how the group's structured, I mean, like most Facebook groups, there's a news feed that goes on that people who post photos and videos and things goes through the news feed. So if you go to the main page, you'll see the most current news feeds coming through in that page. There's also a area which we've got file storage set up where people can drop off various documents and things like photographs and Word documents and PDFs and so forth. And there's a lot of content in there, especially that we put up in the early days, things around a lot of the stuff that people regularly ask about in the fly fishing world, things like, what is the right fly line for a particular rated fly rod, and what's the difference in the ratings between different fly lines, and what does the different numbering mechanisms mean, and what's the chipper to hook size ratio, and all these sorts of things. So there are files up there that have all this content on them. Now, admittedly, a lot of that stuff you can just Google now anyway and find it in a lot of different pages. But remember, back when we started the group, a lot of that information was more difficult to find. Yeah. So we warehoused it in the file section of the community. So there's access there that people can go to and look up some of that content as well.
So that makes sense. Basically, I mean, you got all this content. And the cool thing, it seems like the group that obviously it's a group, so you're able to, unlike Google where you search for stuff, you can't really necessarily talk directly. Here, you're getting feedback. I mean, somebody posts and that person's probably going to get 10 to 20 comments right off of that thing they posted, something like that.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the content that's been posted lately, and then some of the posts are getting like 10, 15,000 engagements with people, and that's comments or likes or that sort of thing. So the content does reach out a lot to the members, and like I said, the members are actively participating in what's going on in the group too. And one of the other things I'd like to point out with admin and moderators is we do it all gratis. We don't take any kickbacks or gratuities or anything from companies or members wanting to basically pay us or give us goods and services in relation to favourable treatment. One of the things I was actually very keen on and adamant about when we first set the group up is it would be a free and open community for people to share information with no commercial involvement at all. So that's one thing I think that's helped the site in that people know that content is free and distributed without any strings attached. So.
That's cool. Yeah, that's probably a big reason why the group has grown. Probably people realize that, right? That it's not they're not going to get advertised or spammed to and all that stuff. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I guess as people appreciate in the fly fishing world, there's a lot of pro staffers and things, people like that around who are fine. They're well and happy to participate and promote their goods or their products, but we're trying to steer clear of that and just keep everything open and free so that people know that what's getting shared is being done so on the basis of the content and its validity to the group rather than anything else. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a little a Facebook group. A private group, and it's I see it already, just the struggle. It's just a small group, but you get companies coming in there and posting a lot of their stuff, and it's obvious that it's their stuff and it's not. You start to wonder, like, where is the value, and that is that something you struggle with? I mean, how do you, if somebody's in there, say they're just posting, it's helpful stuff. I mean, for example, like this podcast, right? I could go in to your group. I have posted a few links to episodes over the years, but I've got like 140 episodes, but I don't post an episode in there every week, even though if I did, right, it would get out to a bunch of people. How do you balance that? What would you tell somebody that you know what I mean? Like there's content, but it's somebody's own content.
I think the volume of the membership in the group and the fact that they are actively participating sort of balances that out in its own right, because, I mean, the number of people who get exposed to that sort of content, and so you get a very balanced discussion about the pros and cons of whatever it is that's being put up. And so in a commercial sense, if somebody from a fishing company or a guiding company or something posts something, there will be a lot of feedback just through the nature of the membership participation. And so I think that helps provide a balanced feedback on those particular issues. There are, of course, trolls and spammers and people like that in any group that sometimes need to be brought under control. But in the most cases, the people in the group are pretty genuine and pretty willing to help and participate in any discussions and voice their views. So I think that's the main thing that helps keep everything balanced.
Gotcha. And I look at what I'm doing, and that is a struggle because time-wise, there's a lot of different things you can spend your time on. Obviously, you have this good group going, but it's hard to get in there and interact, right, and put a lot in. So if someone like myself or another podcaster was to post a link, if they did a weekly show every week, would that be something that would be kind of okay or more frowned upon if they were just kind of posting that and then replying to comments that were posted on that episode?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we encourage that sort of participation from anybody who's got content that's fly fishing related. I mean, that's the main stipulation with the group is that whatever gets put up there is strictly fly fishing related, and not sort of a link to other types of fishing or other types of products that don't directly relate to fly fishing. So that's really the only caveat that we put on things is that members keep it related to fly fishing. They follow the rules in terms of being respectful of each other and those types of things. But other than that, people are free to post whatever they like that's fly fishing related, and hopefully they do.
That's cool. Well, that's good to know. See, and I always thought that I was going to be maybe a little spammy if I was posting. I mean, I think the content that I'm putting out with the podcast is great. I think that, obviously we're having an interview here and digging into helping people understand a new resource, right, that haven't seen your group. And I'm always thinking about that, right? I'm always thinking about who's listening to this show and how can I help them. So, that's good to hear. I'm glad, and maybe there'll be some other podcasters that listen and maybe post in your group. So, yeah, stay tuned. I'll probably be adding some links as we go on and check it out. But I do see it's funny in your group because, man, there's so much activity. It takes up my feed in my Facebook, right? I'm parts of a lot of groups, and it's like, oh my God, that's all fly fishing community, right? Because there's so much. So it's pretty awesome. It's an active group.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the trap for people, if you want to call it that, is that you can get stuck on there for a long, long time searching through the stuff that people post and participating and learning and that sort of thing. So it is an immersive experience that people can sort of lose themselves in the group of it, simply because, like you say, there's so much content and so much active participation that, as a fly fisher, you're always learning something new or seeing new approaches or new techniques that people are using. And so it's a great way of picking up on those sorts of things and thinking about how you can apply them in your own fishing situation. So,
yeah, exactly. That's great. Well, there's definitely a lot of research. I did want to touch on fly tying just for a second. I'm not sure how much fly tying you do, but I was curious if somebody was to search fly tying in the group. Say they wanted to get some information on skating patterns for steelhead. Is that something that they could find, do you think, on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, there's a whole range of active fly tyers who regularly post their flies on the group, and also advice on how to fish them. I'm not actively a fly tyer per se myself. I mean, I do tie a few flies here and there for my own use, but I'm certainly not doing that on a commercial basis. But there are a lot of commercial fly tyers who do post photos and links to their own web pages where you can buy the flies that they tie. So yeah, by all means, search through the content and you'll find what you like.
Okay, and I'm just kind of looking here to see skating flies. I'll just put that in and see. I'm just kind of curious how it comes up. So yeah, it posts. So it looks like it posts a link. Tim Camisa's on there, and it's just got a list of links. And then I think you can sort, right? You can sort by different topics. Yeah. So there's just a ton of content, and then it looks like there's some. Obviously, Tim's got some good stuff going on. Tons of different names. So this is cool. How has Facebook been as far as you hear all these crazy things about Facebook? And this is a public group, right? This isn't a private.
Correct. Yes, it's open to the public.
Like anybody right now can just start. They can join it. They don't have to wait to be approved.
Yeah. There's an approval process. So the group is public and visible to anybody, so you can see the news feeds and so forth. But to actually participate and post, you have to become a membership. Take up a membership, and that just involves answering a couple of key questions about what's your background in fly fishing, why you want to join the group, how long you've been fishing for, and so on like that. And they're basically filters to try and get out any of the bots and things like that that are automatically trying to throw up fake membership accounts. So, and to be honest, probably about 50 to 55% of the applications that we have to the group are exactly that, bots and spam accounts.
No kidding.
That we have to control. There's a lot of that going on. So
wow,
that's probably a lot of what the membership filtering is there to guard against. Yeah, no, unfortunately it happens, but like I say, the tools that we've got for keeping on top of it help us make sure that we don't get anybody in there that's not doing the right thing, and if they do, normally we pick them up pretty quickly and block them from the site. So.
Gotcha. And how does it work with Facebook? Because you hear these things, these stories about Facebook, how they're cracking down, and I think groups is the place where they actually are expanding out. It's the Facebook pages where your followers don't really see it. Do you notice changes in the Facebook group from Facebook algorithm changes affecting? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They're certainly being far more vigilant in some of the algorithms they're running against their group policies and that type of thing. So in the background, as admin, we get feedback from Facebook directly when they find content that they feel breaks their own community standards, and that may not necessarily be the rules of the group per se, but if something gets posted, photos get posted, content gets posted that breaks their community standards, they're now pretty red hot on letting the administrators know that something's not right, and we then get the choice to go in and delete it directly, or in some cases, depending on the severity of the content, Facebook will delete it. The algorithms will delete it themselves, and they'll advise you that content's been deleted. So they are definitely ramping up their vigilance on this type of content in groups.
Gotcha. Okay. And so, out of all the stuff that you've posted, do you have an idea of what the most popular topics or a post or any of that stuff? Do you track that? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, based on the feedback we get from members, probably one of the most contentious subjects that gets raised is the catch and kill versus catch and release argument.
All right.
And normally when that gets popped up, it creates a lot of emotive feedback from people. And I can see the argument from both sides, because people sometimes are fishing in impoundments where it's a requirement to get access that you have to take what you catch. In some cases, trout and fish like that are an introduced species, so they're not endemic to the area that they're fishing. In other cases, trout are native to the areas that are fishing, and so the dynamics of that fishery are totally different. So, and again, because we've got a global audience, sometimes the appreciation of the nuances of the fishery that people are participating in aren't necessarily shared or understood by everybody. So. Yeah. That's probably the most contentious topic that gets brought up from time to time, and it'll raise a lot of emotive feedback, which is great. But sometimes you just have to rein it in because people get a little bit too over the top with what they're saying and their comments they're making. But
that's right. Yeah, I did notice, and you can sort by tagged location. You can choose a location, so there are ways to. I mean, what would be your recommendation if somebody's searching for, again, say they were searching for skating fly tying patterns for skating for steelhead? How would they track down more exact, instead of just a bunch of stuff coming up?
Yeah, well, hopefully the people who are posting this stuff, we encourage them to use hashtags and those sorts of tools as well, which help in the search algorithm. So if you're looking for a hashtag related to a particular topic, that's probably the quickest way to sort and find all the
type in hashtag.
Yeah. And that should pick up pretty quickly content that matches that search criteria.
Gotcha. Or even, just you could type in hashtag steelhead and see what pops up, for example.
Yeah.
Sure. Gotcha. Okay, cool. This is good. I mean, any other tips that you would get out there? Again, somebody's coming to your group for the first time. They just see this pile of information, and some of it's relevant, some of it's not. Any other tips you would give them to get the most out of the group?
The quickest way probably just to have a look at what's going on is if you go to the group and just look at the media and photos that are being posted up rather than the content, and it'll give you a feel for the type of, fishing scenarios that people are covering. A lot of it is freshwater, trout, steelhead, that sort of thing, because a lot of people are coming participate from the Northern Americas, Canada and the US, so forth. But there's a lot of saltwater fly fishing content that's now getting shared, and that's coming from all over the place. I know there's been a big push on in Australia in the last 5 years or so in the saltwater environment, because we have closed seasons for our freshwater fishing. Basically, we're in Australia, so when the season's closed in the cooler months down here, we tend to go and look for other saltwater species in the warmer climates that we can chase. So saltwater fly fishing is certainly becoming a far more popular pastime, and that's worth checking out, because some really cool things that people are doing in that space that are worth looking into.
Okay, cool. And so what do you think is the most, it sounds like the wild versus hatchery or killing fish. What is the most common question you get on there or struggle from people? Is there a common theme?
It's not really a question. It's more of a point of view. So that there are the pro catch and kill and grill people who are quite rightly able to catch and make a meal out of the fish that they're catching, both saltwater and freshwater. It's not just one particular environment or species. So, and then the other side of it are people who are pro catch and release and advocates for letting fish go, because they either don't consume a lot of fish or they let them go so they'll be caught again another time by somebody else. So personally, I tend to practice catch and release most of the time, and that's only because the fishery that I'm fishing in is a dedicated trout fishery, and I don't particularly like trout as an eating fish. There's other species of fish that I'd prefer to eat instead of trout. So I don't tend to kill a lot of fish that I catch in that environment. But then if I'm fishing in saltwater in Australia, we do a lot of fishing for barramundi and related saltwater species here. And those fish I'll tend to keep at their legal size because they're great eating fish. And so I can see the argument from both sides. And then to say there's no right or wrong situation. It's just whatever's unique and appropriate for your fishery and your own individual circumstances, I think.
Okay. And what about, as far as the Facebook group, you've grown this thing up to over 60,000. If somebody wanted to grow their own Facebook group, what sort of tips would you give them?
Have a lot of patience.
Yeah.
And have content that has value, because that's the thing that you can go around and post links to your own groups in a lot of different groups that you're a membership or members of yourself, and that's a way of getting the word out there. But if the content that you have on the group isn't of value to the people who are participating in it, then they'll just leave the group.
Yeah.
And so that's been the key, I think, to growing the group and retaining the membership, is that the content that you've got has to have value to the membership. So make sure that what you're posting and what people are posting is credible and is of value to what their interests are. And that there's tools within the Facebook that allow you to look for particular search words and rules that you post around access to the group that are validated as well. So there's tools in there to help you do that. But primarily, make sure that what the group is about is true to itself. So the content matches what the group says it does, and that it has value to the membership.
Okay. All right. Perfect. And what is your your home water? I mean, you're down in Australia. What is the thing you fish most often?
Freshwater for trout mainly. Here I live in Melbourne in Victoria, in southern Australia. So I have family back in Tasmania as well. So I get back there and fish for freshwater fish. Again, trout mainly down there. I also get away, like I said, in the winter months down here and go up to the northern part of Australia in the tropics in Darwin and chase saltwater species in that area too. I get away and do an occasional trip to New Zealand chasing trout in that country as well. And we've got a couple of trips coming up to the Pacific Islands next year, hopefully post-COVID, and all the international flights get resumed. A trip to Christmas Island next year to chase bonefish and that sort of thing too. So cool. I've got a wide interest in a whole different species of fish, and I just find it interesting and challenging. Also, being a casting instructor myself, it's interesting to try and use those skills to present a fly to different fish in a different environment to get them to eat it. So
Yeah, that's cool. And are you and now I'm not sure what you do for your day job. Are you in the fly fishing industry, or is this something you kind of do on the side?
no, it's purely my own personal interests outside of my day job. I'm an operations manager at a company that tests wool, probably the largest wool testing organisation in the world here in Melbourne. So that's my day-to-day job. But the fly fishing stuff certainly keeps me busy outside of that. And we've got I'm also the chairman of a company called Mending Casts here in Australia, and
Yeah.
we run the casting for recovery and reel recovery programs, which people in the US will be familiar with. Run those programs down here in Australia too. So that keeps me busy outside of my normal 9 to 5 day jobs.
That's right, and that's and those groups are that's part of the like the cancer recovery, right?
Yeah, that's right. So casting for recovery is specifically breast cancer related. So it's a program that runs free weekend retreats for women dealing with breast cancer and uses fly fishing as a way of helping them to overcome their problems and introduce them to an outdoor activity that they can take forward as part of their own recovery. And real recovery is similar in that it operates in the male cancer space. It's a little bit more generic in that it covers all types of cancer, but the premise is the same, that we run free weekend retreats for men suffering from cancer as a way of introducing fly fishing to them as a coping mechanism, as a tool for getting them out into the outdoors and experiencing some fresh air and giving them an interest that they can carry forward as part of their recovery from the cancer. So.
Yeah, that's right. I had Hank Patterson on, I think, back in episode 58, and he mentioned that his partner actually died of cancer, but he went through that program, I think, before, it helped him, get through a period of his life. So yeah, it sounds like it's a pretty good one. Is there if we want to?
Yeah, I think Travis is actually one of the moderators of one of the programs in Iowa or somewhere. I think where he's based too. So he's actively involved in the real recovery program now too. So.
There you go. Yeah, I said Hank Patterson obviously, but that's his Travis Swartz, right? Is his actual name.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I'll put a link in the show notes to that episode. That was pretty cool because I ended up talking to Hank Patterson at the start, but we ended up really talking more to Travis and hearing some of the deep stuff that we got into. So I think it was a good episode. Well, anything else we want to touch on here? That we should know about with the Facebook group? It just seems like there's so much; it's almost overwhelming to try to cover it all. But anything else you want to touch on before before we get out of here?
Like I said, just for those people who are interested, by all means, jump on the group. If you're not a membership, then click the membership button and join up. That doesn't happen immediately because, like I said, the moderators and the administrators will have to go through and vet the applications and make sure that people are legitimate and not program bots and things like that. So it may not get approved straight away, but it will happen within 24 hours. So jump on and have a look. By all means, post whatever you feel is appropriate that matches the group rules, and actively participate. That's all I can really encourage people to do.
Perfect. And let's wrap get out of here with the rapid fire round here. So starting this off,
Sure.
The 222 is where I typically start off. But I wanted to start first to just talk about other Facebook groups you follow. Are there any other groups that you are following out there? It could be fly fishing or
quite
other.
a lot of them. Yeah, I do have another Facebook group which is called Tasmanian Fly Fishers, which is basically dedicated just to people fly fishing in Tasmania. So that's another one that I run. There's a lot of other groups that I'm members of, which I couldn't really list here because there's probably hundreds of them. But all those will be pretty much fly fishing related as well. So I get an idea of what's happening in other groups and in other areas of the world that may relate to what we're doing in the community as well. So it certainly is a fascinating thing to be a part of. And like I say, you never stop learning. There's always things evolving and equipment evolving and people looking at different flies and different fishing techniques, and it's all part of the learning curve. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had Domenick Swentosky was on, and he was talking about how his blog, the Troutbitten blog, is grown to, it's pretty massive, right? He's got all this, and he's just been writing over there, and he talked about how he updates it. He regularly updates posts because he's never going to run out of stuff to write about, and that's, I mean, obviously with your group, there's going to always be something. How many people are in the Tasmanian group?
There's just over 2,500 in that group, so it is a little bit more bespoke in that it basically just deals with people who live in Tasmania and fish in Tasmania. So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of people outside of that location that are members. But again, it's specific to their particular fishery, and the content in there is interesting, given the type of fish that they're chasing and the environment, the pristine environment that they're fishing in.
Yeah. Cool. What is, as far as the group, your bigger group, the fly fishing community, what is the, what are you most proud of with that group?
I just think the fact that its longevity has stood the test of time. Like I say, we're coming up for our 10-year anniversary. 10-year anniversary in September. Yeah, so there will be a bit of a celebration on the group at that stage when we reach that milestone. And the fact that we've maintained a steady growth in membership is really the thing I'm most proud of, because it means that, like I said, the content on there is of value to people, and people are actively participating in making it what it is, because ultimately it's the membership that make the group what it is, because they're the ones sharing their own photographs and their own content and willing to discuss it with other people. And without that, the group basically has nothing to share. So I certainly thank the members for their participation and their support of the group.
Do you still post content on it?
Yes, I do. Not as regularly as I used to, but when there are things in my life or my fishing experiences that I want to share, I certainly do post content on them.
When did you stop? When did you stop kind of regularly posting?
Basically, as I got more involved in the Mending Casts and casting for recovery, real recovery space, because that's taking up a lot more time, and a lot of the content I'm posting on those Facebook pages specific to those programs. So although some of that I do share back onto the fly fishing community because it is relevant in a broader fly fishing sense. So I've sort of split my time now between posting content in those groups and content back on the fly fishing community.
That's right. Okay. And well, we're going to get out of here pretty quick. I just did, I noted the 222. So top tips, top flies, top resources. And, we talked, I guess, let's just think of if you had to pick two flies, you said you do some saltwater, you do some trout fishing. Let's just stick with the trout. What are your, if you had to pick two flies for trout, what are you putting on tomorrow?
Again, fishing in Australia is probably a little bit different to fishing in other places around the world. But in our fishery, I'd probably use a red tag as a go-to dry fly, and a pheasant tail nymph would be the go-to as a nymph fly.
There you go. And what about other resources? So again, somebody is here, I guess we could just say generally talking about trout fishing, somebody new to it. Other than your group, which is a great resource, where else would you direct somebody if you had a couple other resources? It could be another group, book, magazine, video, blog, anything.
Yeah, there's so much content around. I mean, I've just actually become involved in the anchored webcast put together by April Vokey. So that's one thing I've just started getting into myself, and she's putting some really, really great information up on her blog.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, there's nothing that really comes to mind, because there's just so much good content that's being shared by people all over the country.
April, April's a big one. So, and now what are you doing with, what sort of content are you working with her on?
Nothing directly at the moment. It's just I'm just an active member and viewing and reading what she's been putting up. So,
right.
And some of that content's been really worthwhile. I've got a lot out of it. So.
Yeah, that's right. Because she spends half her time down in your neck of the woods, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've actually met her a couple of times, and her husband, and they spend half their time in Australia and half the time in Canada. So they're sort of split between the two countries. So they've got a good appreciation of the fishing challenges in both countries. So
yeah, cool. And this might be another hard one, but as far as tips, what are any couple of tips that you hear about commonly, or something that might help somebody? Say if we stick on trout fishing in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, well, fly fishing and is really linked to fly casting. I'm coming at this from a fly casting instructor, so
Yeah.
I'm declaring that up front.
Yep.
But if people want to improve their fishing, from my own personal experience, my fishing improved in leaps and bounds when I started working on my casting. So
Mm-hmm.
my encouragement to people is if you are having trouble fly fishing or getting the knack of it or the technique right, or you want to go to the next level in terms of saltwater fishing where you need bigger gear, longer casts, heavier flies, you really can't do yourself any disservice by seeking out a accredited fly fishing instructor. If you go to the Fly Fishers International website, there's a search function on there where you can look globally and find accredited casting instructors who'll be more than willing to help you out. So my biggest suggestion for people is to work on their casting, and I continually do that every week. Is keep practicing and keep trying to improve. So,
Yeah.
because that'll help the way that you present the fly, and the presentation is really 85% of the problem in getting a fish to eat the fly.
Yeah, that's right. And the easy way to find a casting instructor, just go to, what would you recommend? Go to the FFI website.
Yes, go to the Fly Fishers International website, and there's a search function there under instructors, I think, where you can look for instructors that are registered all over the globe, because the FFI program is a global program. So there's instructors all over the world who are registered. And
Yeah, yeah. And do you get a lot of conservation posts in your group?
There are a few, yes, and a lot of it is to do with local content, because the particular issues cropping up in people's home waters, and local government issues that people want to bring to the surface, which is fine. I mean, that's all part of the challenges of having a fly fishing community and the fisheries that they participate in. It's just so long as the discussion stays on track and doesn't become too emotive or too political. But yeah, there is a lot of conservation-based content on there too, which is great.
Yeah, yeah. And who's the next biggest group, Facebook group next to you? Do you have an idea, a similar group of what you're doing?
I don't, to be honest, because I don't really actively go and look and see. I mean, it's not like it's a competitive thing where we're selling a product or promoting a particular company. So I don't actively go and look at other groups. I mean, I know some of the commercial companies like Sage and Oars and those sorts of businesses will have more membership, simply because of the products that they're selling, and people are interested in seeing what new products are coming out. But in terms of community groups like ours, I don't actively go and look to see what other groups are doing.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably, my guess is it's probably more of a local group in your area, or there are some like fly fishing gear buy, sell, trade stuff. There's another fly fishing group I'm just kind of looking at. Yeah, so there's a few out there, but yeah, I think they're all probably, there's one here that's got about 25,000 people. So yeah, there's a few other resources out there for sure. And what's your plan now for the next year, 2, 5 years down the line? Are you just going to keep kind of plugging away at it?
Well, up until the COVID situation emerged, we were actively looking at scheduling some more retreats for both the casting for recovery and reel recovery programs. But unfortunately, that's all been put on hold, as you appreciate, with the situation with COVID and the terrible problems that we're facing globally in that sense. So really, all of that is on hold until we come out the other side of the COVID issue, because international travel and things like that is really going to be clamped down until they can find a vaccine and get it all under control. And so a lot of what we do down here involves participation from people in the States, like people like Stan Gollop, who's the executive director at Reel Recovery, was planning to come down to Australia to help us run our programs down here. So that's been put on hold. The Fly Fishing International program, we had testing events that were scheduled to be run here in October, and then they've been cancelled because we can't get people from the States out here to help us participate. So a lot of those things that we were planning in the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, really on hold until the COVID situation clears itself. So
That's right. How is it going down there with COVID in your area? I know in the U.S., I think we've definitely are probably maybe the worst country at handling it so far. But how is it down in your neck of the woods?
We're relatively fortunate, I think, in terms of how we sit compared to the global situation. Our government's obviously closed our borders relatively early, and I think we had the benefit of hindsight in that what was developing here was sort of happening 2 weeks behind Europe and America, so we could see what was coming in that sense. So our government's acted pretty quickly to close our borders and clamp down on social social distancing and so forth to get on top of it. And now I'm happy that the term flattening the curve has been achieved, and they're looking at now relaxing some of the restrictions that they put in place in terms of business access and people getting out and about and enjoying activities and socialising. I mean, we've only just, as of yesterday in Victoria, been allowed to go back fishing again. So that's been a big thing from the fishing fraternity point, because as you appreciate, people who are in lockdown at home, who are used to getting out into the outdoors and using fishing as a way of relaxing and dealing with their mental health, have found it difficult. So now that we're allowed to go fishing again, at least it's going to help people in that sense.
That's yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I guess the next 6 to 12 months, what do you think? What do you think it's going to be looking like? Any predictions on where we're going to be at, or I guess anything new you got? I guess the real recovery is coming up, right? Hopefully.
I think the crux of the issue, obviously, globally, is finding a vaccine. I think that's the only thing that's obviously going to slow the spread of the virus globally. I mean, obviously, as people become exposed to it, and the expectation is that once you've had it, you're immune to it, is going to help slow the spread down eventually. But the last thing you want is second and third waves of infection spreading through countries. So I think we're going to be in a pretty stringent lockdown in terms of international travel until such time as the vaccines are readily available and proven to start to be effective. So, and of course that's going to have economical ramifications around the globe that are going to last for several years yet. So
that's right.
It's a bit hard to pick.
That's definitely a good take on it. Well, I guess we'll leave it at that, John. And if they want to find you, anybody, they can just go to the fly fishing community, search it up on Facebook, and they can connect with you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Or send a message to one of I'm on the list of moderators and admin there, so they can hook me up on the community page and send me a message. As a PM.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's how I originally looked you up. I found you there on the admin, and we finally got this thing put together. So this is it's been good to have you on. John, just want to say thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit about the group, and appreciate you providing the resource. Maybe you'll see me in there a little more, posting some of the upcoming podcasts. I know this one will be there when we get this one ready to go. So thanks for everything you're doing.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the support, and hopefully when this COVID situation sorts itself out, I'll get over to the States so we can catch up and go fishing in your local water sometime soon.
Exactly. Yeah. We'll have some steelhead ready for you. All right, John, we'll talk to you soon. If you want to find all the show notes and some of the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/JB. If you want to find out more about growing your own Facebook group, head over to my new podcast, the Outdoors Online Marketing Podcast, and grab some tips directly from the marketers who are leading the industry in Facebook and other social media platforms. That's Outdoors with an S, online.co. I want to thank you today for stopping by and check out the show. Really appreciate you for coming in and listening. And if you get a chance, would love it if you can share this episode or any of the past episodes with somebody who hasn't heard of the Wet Fly Swing Show. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.